Vilka Fenrisa. In the name of the Great Wolf. We hunt. What is going on, guys? Welcome back to another diorama build. Now, this one is a little bit different as it's more of a proof of concept. The diorama that I have built was more me trying to prove to myself that I have the ability to wire up a model in such a way that I can get the filaments that I've finally gotten to work to light up. Yes. Yeah, so it's a bit rough and ready. Things are hanging out the back. I'm not going to make any attempt to clean that up. That is just going to remain like that because this is a test diorama to me. Yeah, I'm pretty happy with the results. So, less from me, more from the video. Let's have a look and see how I got that done. So, to start off with, what I'm going to be using is 0.5mm copper wire. I've also got a double A power pack, which I've just bought off of Amazon. I'm going to need some soldering wire. As long to go with that, I'm also going to need a soldering iron. The history of this is don't grab the hot bit while it's turned on, because it's hot. Of course, we're going to need some AA batteries, and also I gave up on smashing open light bulbs to get their filaments out. So I went on to eBay, which I found in the UK is the best place to buy them from, and I bought some 2 to 5 volt, again that is 2 to 5 volt replacement filament wires. And then we're going to need a model to shove it all into. So to start this all off, what I've done is I've done a quick measurement with some MDF coasters, which I've bought online for quite cheap. And I've drilled myself a couple of guide holes for where I think I want the wires going. And this is with the whole idea of the diorama slowly coming together in my head. Didn't really have much of a plan before I'd started. So with a hot glue gun and a little bit of perseverance, I sort of got this all glued together, got the battery pack in place where I wanted it to be, and sort of continued from there. Deciding that I wanted this Space Wolf to look like he was going to be coming down the side of a cliff, maybe have a little ice pool or ice patch at the bottom. Wasn't quite sure at this point, just sort of letting the build tell me what it wanted to look like in the end. So the next thing we want to do now is get ourselves 2 lengths of copper wire. And the reason why we're getting 2 is because one is going to be our positive and the other will be our negative. That's going to come later on. Doesn't matter which is which right now. So the next thing as well is to just sand down the ends, because I'm going to be using solder and crocodile clips later to connect to everything. So whatever they've coated this wire with, it's not very conductive, which will be helpful for later because these wires are going to be rubbing up against each other and we don't want it arcing over, but not great for when we want to solder things together and get the metal crocodile clips on. So we're just going to file that off and get rid of whatever's on the end there, and then we'll have good connectivity. And also make sure to overestimate how much wire you actually need, because you don't want to be mucking about later trying to add wire when you can just subtract it. So don't worry about that. So the next thing we're going to be doing is soldering our copper wire to one of our filaments, and you can see what I've done is I've blue tacked everything down so it doesn't move around too much. Someone else suggested to me to use double-sided tape, but I didn't have any double-sided tape, and I did have blue tack. So, yeah, I suppose double-sided tape probably would have been better. Also, as well, I've covered the filament with the end of a rubber glove, just because I don't want to be touching it too much, and also I want to try and not damage it by touching it loads or getting bits of hot solder flaking onto it. And as you can see, I am rubbish at soldering, so that is a skill that I'm currently learning every time I do it. So this is the part where you cannot say that I didn't drill out my gun barrels because this gun barrel technically goes down to his foot. So I wanted to channel the wires back through the model and then down into the diorama itself. Now to do that, I was just sort of started off by, right, I'm going to drill as far in to the gun as I can, and then I'm going to have to come up through his arm. I tried a couple of different ways of doing this, and eventually it was just sort of trial and error, all depending on the shape of the arm. Different arms would cause different directions to go in. So I'm not going to go too much into that, because every model will be unique on this. You are just going to have to try and figure that out for yourself if you are going to follow along to do this. But using the drill bit to see how far you can go and roughly where it's going to end up is my best bit of advice I can give you on there. So what turned out to probably be the fiddliest part of this entire build was trying to get these wires to go through the channels which I had created. And I'm quite glad that this hole had sort of accidentally appeared, but turned out for the best because I was able to get some tweezers in there and sort of redirect and get the wire to go where I wanted it. So that worked out quite well in the end. Yeah, a bit of patience was needed with this, and also I filled that hole in with some Milliput once I had finished. So I was gluing this together as I went along, just letting each section dry before I moved on to the next part. And also, if you're wondering, the box that I used was Grey Hunters, and the legs are from a Salt Marine, so that's what gives it this quite cool dynamic pose where it looks like he's charging force, literally guns akimbo. Yeah, I just pretty much went with the rule of cool. So the next stage is going to be to paint this up. So I got my magic paint pot, and chucked my model in, and then I just chucked all the paint and water that I needed to get this all nice and painted up. God, I really wish it was that simple. Be a lot easier, wouldn't it? So at this point, I knew I was going to be building up the terrain for the diorama. So putting in my modeling compound, I also added a couple of 3D printed skulls, thinking that it would cause it to sort of look like the skulls were a lot more naturally sort of seen in the terrain. This wasn't the case, especially with the build that I've done. There's a couple of skulls showing, but not quite to the effect that I thought it was going to be. So there was a misjudgment. Maybe this wasn't the best one for it, as I was trying to build up quite a thick layer. So maybe if I'm doing thinner layers, this might work better in the future. I also added some black acrylic paint. Now I don't know whether it's just the paint that I used or what, but it did cause this not to fully dry for about 24 hours, which was a bit irritating, but hey ho, these things are sent to test us. I reckon it's about time we get this finished. Well then guys, I really hope you've enjoyed this video. I know I certainly have. Building this build has been such an eye-opening experience for me, and also now that I've harnessed the power of the filaments, I'm feeling a little bit unstoppable. That won't last. I've got a one tip does plenty coming up, where I'm going to be seeing if buying these packs like this AAK non-metallic metal gold are actually worth buying. Stick around for that one, because I've never even attempted non-metallic metal. It terrifies me. I could buy gold in a pot. That's what I normally use. So I'm going to see if that works. I've got an idea for a wireless diorama. If it does or doesn't work, who knows? At least the diorama should look pretty cool if it doesn't work. So whether I win or lose, I'll be posting that video. Had a few more ideas as well. So plenty to come, plenty more to see. If you want to watch something else in the meanwhile, it'll be on the screen in front of you. And guys, I really do hope to see you in the next one.